Now, without further ado, let's welcome Dr. Newton Moore, strategic designer, L&D researcher, and continuous improvement professional at NBM Learn. Newt, if you could please share your screen, the webinar is yours.
Thank you, Kristen, and welcome everyone. Just a moment, I'm going to share my screen. Okay, welcome again to Improving L&D and AI Augmentation, Work Augmentation. I'm going to cover three things today. I will provide two examples of where AI is augmenting work. I will talk about what L&D can do to prepare for AI, as well as work augmentation. Then finally, I'll talk about, before you automate, some tips and some suggestions on what will make you successful with AI. However, we're going to start a poll right away to get a sense of your knowledge and your experience with AI and generative AI in particular. So, Kristen, you'd like to launch that poll, please?
I am getting there, Newt. It has moved on me. And it looks like we've got it going. We have about 15 people who have responded so far.
Great.
And we have 75, oh, there we go, 71% participation. A couple people are popping in. And I'm going to end the poll in 3, 2, 1. And can you see the results?
Yes, thank you. And I can see that, like most people says, other. I'm not sure what other may mean, but I guess you found a different way, or you have a different cut of how AI is being used, or your knowledge of AI. Would anyone care to elaborate in the chat what other may mean?
It said the poll was not correct. Interesting.
Or maybe
I think what happened is we ended up having a technical difficulty and another poll was added in. I am going to see if I can, no, identifying tasks, capabilities, and skills. The poll questions were different than the questions on the screen. Hey, I'm sorry, everyone. This most likely is technical difficulty with me.
that's okay. Things happen. Well, thanks, everyone. I appreciate you responding. I think it's still interesting. I think everyone looks like they're somewhat familiar in different ways. And I caught that some people are using generative AI for skills. And, feel free to chime in as we go along. But thank you so much. And thank you, Kristen. So let's move on. Our first example is this rendering of a grain elevator. On number one, that image is a 3D model that I created in 3ds Max, which is a CAD system. I looked at a photograph and modeled it in 3ds Max. I then rendered it and then exported that to Photoshop, and I used the generative fill tool in Photoshop, which is a generative AI tool. And with prompts, I had to use prompts to create the final version. Now, this is a pretty simple example using images and how AI is used with images. But I think it also shows that I took a creative concept and vision of my own, and I modeled it in a CAD system. Then I enhanced my vision of the grain elevator with the generative fill tool in Photoshop. So I allowed AI to assist me in creating an enhanced output. And this is what human augmentation with AI is about. It's about improving what you do, but you're still the person who's going to create or think or problem solve with the assistance of AI. For the next example, I want you to understand about reducing waste. Um, there are eight of them in lean. The third one is waiting. And in this next example, we have engineers who were waiting for answers and they could not complete their work because they didn't have the answers they needed. To give you some context, according to a study by McKinsey, employees could not get their work done without delays, waiting for answers to their questions. Overall, McKinsey found 11 hours a week were lost in productivity time. In our example, to solve the wait issues for engineers, we developed a chatbot that used natural language libraries or models and the Azure Cognitive Services. This was a few years before ChatGPT, and I will explain the differences to you later on. What we wanted engineers to do was to capture their deep technical knowledge and transfer that knowledge to our customer portal. Customers would access that portal to get answers to their technical problems and questions. However, when engineers were capturing their information into the tool, they sometimes were not sure what information was needed. The chatbot would try to answer those questions for the engineers and provide performance support. Think of the chatbot as a coach, providing just-in-time support for the engineers. ChatGPT wasn't around several years ago when we created this bot, but many of the AI components were. What is in the green on the chart are the main components of ChatGPT today. I feel it's important to grasp the whole scope of AI. We know about ChatGPT, but we may not know the other parts of artificial intelligence. And just to give you an example, if you look at the lower right-hand corner, you see vision, which is really computer vision. And when you think of self-driving cars, they have perception systems that help them identify objects, pedestrians in the streets. That is computer vision, and that is part of artificial intelligence. What is unique today with ChatGPT is the generative pre-trained transformer, which is the acronym GPT, and the generative adversarial networks, which gives it that generative ability. When we say it creates something, it doesn't really create anything. It just reshuffles and changes and generates new things, new answers, new images. In addition to those two components, you have the large language processing models, which are so far robust today than they were when we started with ChatGPT. We had a language model, but it was very limited compared to today. Another distinction is that ChatGPT is an unsupervised learning program. The ChatGPT trains itself without human intervention. The only time that humans really get involved is when they do prompt engineering, just as I did with the Adobe tool. I had to enter prompts to configure the outputs and customize those outputs to my needs. So some use cases will require prompt engineering, but overall, it teaches itself. Now, compared to the bot we used several years ago, those components were missing. We didn't have a generative pre-trained transformer, and we didn't have the generative adversarial networks. There was also limitations, as I mentioned, with natural language processing, and we also had kind of supervised or semi-supervised learning. So we had to have a human being periodically train the bot to fine-tune its answers, its responses. This is, on the right-hand side, is a screen capture of the bot, very similar to what you see in ChatGPT. You put in a question through text, and it provides answers. It could interpret questions from the user. It can also find relevant resources. So let's say someone asks a question, but they want to know more information. It can find videos, documents, training materials to help that person understand the question better. It can also find subject matter experts. So even though it answers the question, it can suggest others who may be subject matter experts to help answer those questions. The other thing it had, other capability was sentiment analysis. Sentiment analysis was very useful to us because the bot could tell us just how well is being received by the users. And based on that, we could fine tune it in those experiences, we could improve that experience with the user. Now, while AI is doing some fantastic things in supporting people in the flow of work, we have to be cognizant that there are limitations of what it can do. Today, we have artificial narrow AI, generative AI, and super AI are all theoretical concepts and are not a reality today, nor does anyone know when they ever will be a reality. The limitations of artificial narrow AI, it's subject to hallucinating. It has limitations in doing rule-based tasks, beyond rule-based tasks. It does rule-based tasks well, but beyond rule-based tasks, that's all it's primarily good at. There are occasional inaccurate and biased responses from these bots. The thing you have to know is that jobs that exceed role-based procedures or require unique interpersonal relations will need people to perform them. This is not something AI is good at. So I've given you two examples. I've indicated some of the limitations and advantages of technology. Now I'd like to talk a little bit more about what L&D can do. This research from Databricks illustrates that organizations implementing AI platforms are mostly concerned about training and upskilling staff to use it. And the question for you is this an important role, the reskilling for L&D? If L&D is going to reskill others, certainly L&D has to start upskilling itself. And as a learning practitioner, you may find a lot of resources you can start to upskill yourself. I mentioned earlier about my experience of using Adobe and to learn how to use AI and generative AI in my work. There are a number of options out there. Some have subscription costs and some are free versions. But one cool tool that I'd like is the NVIDIA Chat RTX. You will need a NVIDIA GPU or graphics unit, processing unit. You can download it for free, at least the software you can download for free if you have that GPU. And you can use it on your personal computer as your personal chatbot. It comes with several large language libraries, which are very robust. The advantage is that you can point it to a folder of PDFs and other documents and ask questions and other information and get other information about those documents. It is more private and it doesn't have to be leveraged with the internet, but your own personal resources and information, including images. So I experimented with it and I like it. And here's some other examples for you to explore if you like. Another suggestion for you as you take your journey into AI is to form a community of practice with your colleagues. Discuss the implications of AI, include internal and external participants, invite IT and AI subject matters experts to come in and talk to the group. I have done this with IT and technical employees before in teaching them artificial intelligence. We took an online course, for example, and in our bi-weekly lunch and learn meetings, we discussed the courses and reviewed and asked questions. What we learned from research that we've done was that participants came away learning more in those meetings than when they studied alone taking those classes. So there are certainly advantages in forming communities of practice where people can learn. I have also used this format to crowdsource learning providers from leaders and professionals in the organization. Find out what others have discovered useful in their AI journey. You can use an online forum to capture this information and then publish a report on employee choices for upskilling and reskilling. And one of the things I can say about this is you include important information like ratings and also cost. There's a lot I can say about resources for upskilling, but I think if you use the QR code, I have a document online, and this will also be an email that Kristen will send out. You can get that document, and it has a lot more information on how you could upskill yourself and different opportunities for that. I also have books too for you to look at and other resources. Okay, we've talked about what L&D can do. We mentioned reskilling, upskilling, and how important that is. And an additional thing that L&D can do is consider leveraging leadership programs to keep leaders, at least improve leaders' understanding of AI. So let's move on to the next topic, which is before you automate or use AI. Now, I know that you can experiment. You might find some quick wins with AI right away. And I'm not suggesting analysis paralysis before you start anything. However, a more intentional approach will help you be successful at augmenting these tools with human performance. I read a book called Work Without Jobs by Ravan Jusithasan and John Berdow. This test asks the question if the concept of jobs, a remnant of the industrial past, is still relevant today. Jobs are developed with human constructs representing human work, but things are changing as AI does some tasks better than people and people do tasks better than AI. How do you decide what is done by automation or AI and what is done best by people? The author of the Work Without Jobs book felt that the concept of jobs may have originated from the industrial age. That age is certainly reflected in the work of Frederick Taylor, who in 1911 published The Principles of Scientific Management. Thanks to Taylorism, we have mass production today, and we enjoy the benefits of that, of course. However, at the same time, factory workers were dehumanized cogs doing routine commoditized work. Taylorism is practiced by leaders today, and this is evident when leaders are too preoccupied with efficiency that replaces people with machines or AI. We should never lose sight that people bring their originality and their unique perspectives and talents to the work. On an individual level, each person has something different in their capabilities to offer. While jobs try to commoditize the unique abilities of people, when we look closer at what people can do on an individual level, we will see the special gifts people bring to work. We are the same in many aspects, but everyone has some unique talent, gift, or capability that no one else has. We are similar, but as unique as the fingerprints on our hands when it comes to talents. Collectively, because of our aggregate skills, human potential is certainly limitless. Let's take a closer look at the concept of jobs. Jobs are a monolithic representation of work. Jobs mask the skills and capabilities, which are essential components to be identified before work can be augmented with human effort and automation. When deconstructing a job, you have to consider the subcomponents that make up a job, such as tasks, skills, capabilities, and expertise. And the center of that is value. The value you bring to customers, because otherwise, why do the job if it's not bringing value to your customers? So that's an important aspect of doing the job. And I'll get more into that when I show you a value stream map toward the end of this discussion. When you go back to that jobs book, one of the things it mentions is deconstruction of job also makes it possible for career mobility, job sharing. Being able to flex demand on your team is important during crunch time. And if you look at the task you are doing, you may be able to reassign to others in your organization or to use contingency help. So there are some advantages in deconstruction. This is an example of work I have done in deconstructing a job that was performed by energy industry professionals. When job tasks were ranked by supervisors and job incumbents, the first 17 are the most important tasks for that job. Over 40 tasks are listed, but not all have the same impact on business outcomes. Here's some advice for you. Some skill inventories and AI-driven skill taxonomies generate hundreds of skills. However, you have to be intentional to use the criteria to filter the tasks and skills that are most impactful to the job outcomes. My recommendation is don't be caught bowling the ocean. Instead, pick a maximum of 20 tasks or less. All right, we're going to have another poll. Ready, Kristen?
Let's see if I can do this one right. Oh, man. Let me see. Aha, that's what happened is I put poll number 2 was level of knowledge and poll number 1 was identifying tasks. So let's see if we can relaunch this one. And come on. Sorry, I'm working on 2 screens, people. All right, now purchase skill taxonomy is the first one. LMS's built-in skill library is the second. Task analysis on some jobs, the third. AI talent solution that gathers skills, and then other. I think we actually have the right poll up there, Newt.
Great.
And it looks like people are answering. This is fantastic. Ah, gotta love it when everything works.
It is nice.
Hopefully all of you can see the poll as well. It's getting delivered to each and every one of you because there were people in the past that were saying that they could not receive the poll. Hopefully it's not getting blocked. Yes, it's coming up. All right, looks like we have 17 people out of the 33 participants are answering. Oh, look, 18. Gonna wait a couple more seconds. See if people can run back to their computers while they just grabbed their lunch and got back in front of their screens. Hey, we all know that we're all multitasking right now, so we're all doing what we can with what we've got. And we're going to close the poll in 3, 2, 1.
All right.
And here are your results.
I'm so happy to see that people are using task analysis on some jobs. Wonderful, wonderful. And of course, there's others, but this was a good response. So people are familiar with task analysis. That's great. All right, thank you. As you start deconstructing jobs to determine what AI can do and what people are best doing, use ONET as a resource. I have here a training and development specialist role. As you can see, this role has many titles that do overlap. You won't find the exact title in ONET, but ONET will give you a lot of ideas on skills and tasks to get you started on your deconstruction work. So I think you should check it out. It's very useful, well laid out, and has a lot of good ideas for you. I'm going to introduce you to a new tool that may be new to you, it may not be. It's a lean tool. And this is an example of an L&D SIPOC that outlines the inputs and outputs of the organization at a high level. For you, the team, seeing the organization at a high level and the work being performed helps provide a context before exploring tasks, skills, and capabilities that the organization has. Another benefit of the SIPOC exercise is that it allows you to have discussion and form a common understanding of how work is being performed in your L&D department. Here is a look of a process task developing training, which is on the right there. It's called a work activity. And I deconstructed to skills, and you can stop at task, but I continued with skills, and there are 11 skills here listed. I also did a level of expertise, which you won't see that type of nuance in many skill libraries. but I think it's critical. It's a critical aspect of expected level of work performance, and that's why I include it here. Now, you could use years of experience as a substitute in level of expertise, but I think we all know saying 5 years of experience is a vague measurement of performance. You need more clear descriptions of what competent, advanced, and expert means for that job skill in your organization. And that's a good discussion with your management and your team to kind of define what those mean and how they translate into business success. But it's a good discussion to have, and you understand what performance looks like and how these tasks could actually impact your business and your role. This illustration represents the job activity of developing training materials again. When you look at the activity at the task level, you see different opportunities on how that work might get done. Curation, for example, could be done by automation or AI. But you won't see these possibilities if you don't get down to the task level. Another aspect of this deconstruction is that when you add new tasks, that you can look at those skills too and start improving the work by adding these new skills and new tasks. The next thought I like to talk more about, we talked about deconstruction, but I like to talk more about waste and how it's important to really optimize your processes. Because why would you automate a broken process? Going back to the side puck again, this example is the first one we're going to use, which is process training request. That's one of the tasks for this L&D team. Now, this might scare you, but this is called a value stream map. It is using Lean. I find it a powerful tool to find the value in the work. And you have, I'll explain to you, it has subtasks for the request, for the process training request. The customer is at the top, and a customer makes a request for training, which goes to that first box. And that request is reviewed by an HR employee via email. And then it goes to the Jira system where a ticket is created. Once it's in Jira, the L&D employee is notified of the request. The L&D employee enters Jira to look at the request and evaluate it. And then finally, a decision is made and the customer is notified. And an Outlook meeting is set up in the future to discuss the next steps of providing the service to the customer. Now, I want you to understand some things here. First, the FIFO means first in, first out. So as requests come in, they deal with the first one first, and it's in an order like that. The other thing I'd like you to note is the minutes, 30 minutes, 20 minutes, 40 minutes. Those are in black. Those are called value added time or effort that the customer will pay for because they're getting their request handled directly. And that's important to a customer. The 60 minutes and the 960 minutes, I'll explain to you what that is, but that's non-value added work or things customers will not pay for. The L&D team in this situation recorded this time and found out that they had, for example, 60 minutes, and they found out the HR employee was multitasking. They don't always look at requests when they come in, and they don't always put requests right away into Jira. They're doing other things. They're responding to phone calls. They're having meetings. So they're not going to always be at every be a resource every time a request comes across. So that's the multitasking aspect, which ends up being 60 minutes for this particular request. The other thing is incomplete information. That's the 960 minutes. This is where the L&D employee has to go back and forth with the customer to get a clarification on what the request is. Even though the customer filled out the form, there's still a lot of unanswered pieces, and it's a back and forth process, which could take a time as as it's clarified. So once you do this analysis, you've done the SIPOC, you've done your process, you've done your deconstruction, you start looking at this opportunities chart. And this is something I created, and I actually used this with my team. We looked at a customer request for services, and we listed the activities or the task. Maybe there's some associated duties. And then we took a look at the LMS because that's where a lot of this work was being handled. And then we thought about what is essential. In other words, what is adding value? You can just change out what is essential and put value. And then we asked, how do we optimize, outsource, or stop doing it? Outsource meaning we give it to someone else to do. We had a career mobility program. We could give it to another employee. We had contingency help. We can give it to that person. So it all depends. That's the outsourcing. Or we stop doing. The optimization is what we have listed there. One of the things we thought about was having fewer fields in the request form. That was just too many fields, people taking too long to fill it out. Automation, we felt would help, where a bot could help us gather that information and summarize it for us. We also thought, if not that, at least a help desk support could be beneficial. But what this does, and this is a collective activity with your team or with, with the whole team, your manager, if you will, looking at this and saying, how do we improve this? We've done this analysis. What do we do next? Well, I hope this was helpful and you learned something. Thank you for coming, and my contact information is listed. Feel free to send me any questions and best wishes. I do think the most important thing you should remember is that L&D has to reskill others. That's a main role for L&D in this AI climate. Make it clear to your leaders that you have to embrace human capabilities and not use AI just to replace jobs without fully understanding the implications of that. Finally, be intentional about rolling out your AI by finding where the greatest value is in your workflow. You can experiment, but if you're going to do something, make sure it's going to make a difference. All right, thank you.
Thanks so much, Newt. If anybody has any questions right now, you can toss them into the Q&A bubble. And Newt still has some extra time to be able to answer anything. But you definitely covered a whole heck of a lot of material, Newt.
I was a little worried there, but
And it looks like right now we're kind of staying a little bit silent. So other than the thank yous, we appreciate all of your time and effort to be able to put this together. I am going to share my screen for a moment and give everybody a heads up of something that we're doing right now over here at ELB Learning. If you take a look at the QR code that is on your screen, we do have the Summer of Learning running through September 2nd. And what it's all about is if you will schedule a consulting session with a product specialist or any of our specialists, and then attend a 30-minute product demo of your choice, you will automatically be entered for a chance to win an all expenses paid trip to DevLearn 2024. Yes, this includes your airfare if you are stateside in the United States, your hotel, your full conference pass, and also a stipend for meals every single day. So hopefully you'll click that QR code, you'll scan it, and you'll set up an appointment and talk to one of our specialists. And thank you so much, everyone, for being here today and being a part of this. We do appreciate this. And hopefully we will see you on the next webinar.
yes, thank you so much. Thank you, Kristen.
Thanks so much, Newt.
You have a wonderful day, and everybody have a great afternoon.